3 days. 3 days without going to the bathroom, with normal results, and your body begins to poison itself from the inside out. And worst of all, it's not the food. It's not the lack of vegetables. It's not the lack of water. What's really blocking your intestines lies much deeper than you think. Marek Kowalski. In a few minutes, you'll understand why everything you've done so far to help yourself probably made things worse. 1 in 5 people undergoes shimeji daily, and in nursing homes every second, and no one, literally no one, explains to them why standard advice doesn't work. Today I'll tell you 7 things that change everything. We'll start with the one they're most silent about. But first, you need to understand one thing. Your intestine isn't a tube through which food simply moves under the influence of gravity. It's 9 meters of living muscle that contracts and relaxes in coordinated waves, just like your heart. And when these waves weaken, the food stagnates, the water is absorbed, the mass hardens, and a spiral begins that becomes increasingly difficult to escape. It's not discomfort. It's a signal that the entire system is slowing down. And here's a question almost no one asks. Why do these waves weaken? The answer starts with a single nerve, the largest nerve in your body, the one that runs from your brain all the way to the last bend of your large intestine. It's the one that sends the signal: contract, move, work. When this nerve is working properly, you don't even think about it. Everything happens automatically without your involvement. But when something quiets it, and more things than you think quiet it, the intestines stop listening. The contraction waves become weak, infrequent, and uncoordinated. The mass in the intestine doesn't move. It ferments, and instead of leaving the body, it begins to poison it from within. What quiets this nerve? I'll tell you in a moment, but first I want you to understand the scale. 80% of this nerve's fibers are sensory fibers, those that collect information from the intestines and send it to the brain, and only 20% are motor fibers, those that tell the intestines what to do. This means one thing: your gut isn't a dull performer. It's talking to your brain constantly. And when this conversation is interrupted, peristalsis, these waves of contractions, fall apart like an orchestra without a conductor. What disrupts this conversation? Stress. Chronic, daily, low-dose stress, the kind you don't even notice. When your body is in stress mode, and after 60, it's in that mode more often than you think, your nervous system shifts digestive resources to survival. Your gut gets the message, stop, and it obediently stops. Think of it this way. When your body thinks it's in danger and an unpaid bill or a sore knee that hasn't gone away for 3 weeks is exactly the same as an encounter with a predator. All digestion takes a back seat. And so it goes, day after day, week after week. But that's not the strangest thing, because something blocks your gut far more effectively than stress. And millions of people do it every day, fully convinced they're helping themselves. Imagine a 65-year-old person who takes a pill for blood pressure in the morning, one for cholesterol, one for joints, and one for acid reflux. 4 pills, a normal daily dose. Nothing unusual, except that 3 of these 4 pills have a common side effect. The same one. They slow down intestinal motility, literally slowing down the waves of contractions I just mentioned. Calcium channel blockers for hypertension relax vascular muscles, but they also relax intestinal muscles. Nonsteroidal pain relievers act on receptors that also control gastrointestinal movement. Antacids, especially those containing aluminum and calcium, bind water in the intestine and harden the mass. But that's not all. Iron supplements, the ones prescribed for anemia, create numerous compounds that slow down movement like a handbrake. Some depression medications, especially the older tricyclics, act on receptors in the gut just as strongly as they do on receptors in the brain, and no one tells you this when prescribing them. The result? Someone takes 5 medications, 3 of which inhibit the bowel, and at the appointment they're told, please eat more vegetables. And this isn't a list from a textbook I'm just mentioning for effect. I'll tell you one thing you won't hear anywhere else. During a typical appointment, when you report constipation, the doctor will prescribe a laxative, but they almost never check to see if your own medications are the cause. This isn't because they don't want to, but because the appointment lasts 12 minutes and constipation isn't a topic they have time for. Meanwhile, all it takes is for the doctor to switch one medication to another from the same class but with a different side effect profile, and the bowel begins to function without laxatives, without diet, without exercise. Therefore, the first thing you should do is print out a list of all the medications you're taking and ask your doctor directly, could any of them be slowing down my bowels? One question, 20 seconds, and an answer that can change more than you expect. But medication is just the beginning, because there's something you do every day, something you believe in with all your being, that does the exact opposite of what you think. Eat more fiber. You've heard this phrase 1,000 times, from doctors on TV, from your neighbor, from a dietitian online. You've tried bran, cereal, whole grains, salads, and here begins what still surprises me. For a significant number of people over 60, adding fiber without simultaneously increasing fluid intake worsens constipation. It doesn't improve it, it worsens it. Insoluble fiber, the kind from bran, husks, and raw vegetables, increases the volume of the mass in the intestine. But if the intestine doesn't have the strength to move it and doesn't have enough water to soften it, the mass simply sits there, hardens, and blocks everything even more effectively than before. Like pouring more sand into a pipe that's already blocked? The more you add, the worse it gets. The solution is simple but requires understanding. There are two types of fiber: insoluble fiber, which swells and forms a mass, and soluble fiber, which turns into a gel, moisturizes, softens, and facilitates movement. Soluble fiber is flaxseed soaked in water overnight. Pectin from cooked apples is the seed of psyllium. This small, inconspicuous substance can change the situation in a few days. But be careful, and this is crucial. Every gram of fiber requires a minimum of 150 milliliters of water. Every gram. Without it, fiber turns into a traffic jam. And if you think you already know the answer, you're wrong. Because the water you drink doesn't necessarily reach where it should. Most people, when they hear drink more water, do exactly the same thing. They increase the amount by a liter and a half, or 2, and nothing changes. Why? Because the water you drink is absorbed primarily in the small intestine. Very little reaches the large intestine, where constipation occurs, especially if you drink a lot at once and quickly. There's one simple way to change this, and it's based on a mineral that 70% of people over 60 lack. It's not about magnesium as a calming supplement, but as osmotic magnesium for intestinal water. When magnesium appears in the colon in the right form, citrate or oxide, water from the surrounding environment begins to flow into the intestinal lumen. It's not because you drink it, but because the magnet attracts it. The mass softens. The volume increases. The intestinal wall reacts to the stretching and triggers a wave of contractions. This works on 2 levels simultaneously. First, the osmotic effect. Magnesium draws water into the intestine. Second, magnesium is essential for proper smooth muscle contractions. Without it, the intestinal muscle contracts weakly and unevenly. So you're missing one mineral, and the consequences are twofold: dryness and immobility. And here's another thing. Symptoms of magnesium deficiency, besides constipation, include calf cramps at night, eyelid twitching, poor sleep, and irritability. If you recognize at least 2 of these symptoms, it's no coincidence. 200 milligrams of magnesium citrate in the evening with a full glass of warm water. Discuss this with your doctor, especially if you have kidney problems, as the dosage and form need to be tailored individually. But for most people, this is one of the simplest and most effective solutions available. If what I just said resonated with you, give this video a thumbs up, and if you're feeling hyped, send it a hype. The algorithm will then show the video to those who need to hear it today. And now for something that's almost never discussed: the position you take when you sit on the toilet. This is perhaps the most underrated piece of the whole puzzle. Inside your body, at the border between your rectum and anal canal, there's a loop-shaped muscle that wraps around your rectum like a lasso. When you stand or sit upright, this muscle contracts, creating a bend at approximately 90 degrees. This is good because it prevents accidents during the day. But when you sit upright on the toilet, this angle doesn't change, and you're trying to push the mass through a bend that's literally blocked. You're pushing, pressing, increasing abdominal pressure with minimal effect. And here's the paradox. Just one change is enough. Leaning your torso forward and raising your feet onto a low footrest, and that muscle relaxes. The angle straightens to 120 degrees. The rectum forms a straight line with the anal canal, and the mass passes effortlessly. X-rays confirm this. The difference is visible to the naked eye, and all you need is a footrest by the toilet, or a stack of books, or an inverted bucket, anything that raises your knees above your hips. In a minute, you'll understand why I started talking about position. Because it connects to something happening in your intestine at a microscopic level. Trillions of microorganisms live inside your large intestine, literally trillions, and they don't just sit there aimlessly. Their main task is to process fiber that your enzymes can't digest and convert it into short fatty acids. This is fuel for the cells of the intestinal wall. When there's enough of this fuel, the intestinal wall is strong, hydrated, and works rhythmically. When fuel is lacking, the cells weaken, the waves of contractions become chaotic, the protective mucus thins, and the intestine becomes sluggish. And this is what happens after 60. The diversity of these microorganisms declines. The species that produce the most valuable fuel, butylum, propionate, begin to disappear, and in their place are those that produce gas, but don't produce anything that helps the intestine contract. This isn't a theory. Data from many years of observation confirms it. The lower the diversity of bacteria in the intestine, the slower the passage and the harder the stool. And this is the trap most people fall into. When the intestines aren't working, people reach for laxatives once, twice, 10, 100 times. And laxatives, especially stimulants, the ones most often purchased over the counter, destroy receptors in the intestinal wall with prolonged use. The intestine becomes increasingly deaf to signals, and you need increasingly stronger doses to achieve the same effect. It's a spiral of addiction that few people talk about openly. How can you counteract it? 2 words: fermented foods, sauerkraut, pickled beets, kefir, and sugar-free natural yogurt. Not 100 Zwadi probiotic supplements, but living cultures in food, which the human intestinal ecosystem has recognized for thousands of years. Leave a comment, yes. If you recognized yourself, not if you missed it. I read everyone. And now for the thing I promised I'd mention, the one they usually keep quiet about. When you hear move more, you think of a walk, exercise, the gym, and that makes sense. But there's one type of movement that works directly on the intestines and doesn't require leaving the house. It's deep, diaphragmatic breathing. When you breathe from your diaphragm, your belly expands on the inhale and retracts on the exhale. Your diaphragm lowers and rises like a piston, and this piston physically massages your large intestine from above. With each inhale, a downward pressure. With each exhale, a retraction. This is a mechanical stimulation that triggers peristalsis independently of nerves, regardless of medications, regardless of diet. But there's something more. Deep diaphragmatic breathing activates the same nerve we discussed at the beginning, the one that controls the intestines. So you're working on 2 fronts at once, mechanically through massage and neurologically by stimulating the nerve that triggers a wave of contractions. And it requires no physical effort, 0 stress on joints, 0 risk. You can do this lying in bed for 5 minutes in the morning before getting out of bed. You lie on your back, hands on your stomach. Inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. Your belly rises. Exhale through your mouth for 6 seconds. Your belly falls. You repeat it calmly without rushing, and after 5 minutes you get up and go to the bathroom. Not because you have to, but because your body itself gives you the signal. This same mechanism is used in post-operative rehabilitation to activate your intestines after surgery, and you can use it every morning for free, without pills, without side effects. Save this video to your bookmarks. Memory is flawed, but a bookmark won't fail you. But there's one more element, and it's probably the most important, because it connects everything we've talked about so far. Your body has a built-in mechanism that should activate every morning like clockwork. It's called the gastrocolic reflex, and it works like this. When food enters your empty stomach, the stomach sends a signal to the large intestine. Make room, move it. And the large intestine responds with a powerful wave of contractions. The strongest contractions are in the morning after the first meal. The problem is that most people destroy this reflex without even realizing it. In the morning, they eat quickly, standing up, then sit on the toilet, nothing. They leave, breakfast in a hurry, or not at all. And the reflex that was supposed to kick in doesn't get triggered. It should be the other way around. You get up, drink a glass of warm water. Not hot, not cold, warm. Because warm water relaxes the smooth muscles of the digestive tract. Then 5 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing, what I just mentioned. Then you eat, a breakfast with fat and soluble fiber, oatmeal with flaxseed and a tablespoon of olive oil, or an egg with avocado on whole grain bread. Only then do you sit on the toilet with a footstool under your feet, without your phone, and give yourself 5 minutes. This ritual combines everything. Warm water, the diaphragm, the gastrocolic reflex, position, and calm. And for most people, the effect appears within the first week. It's not because you're doing anything extraordinary, but because you stop fighting your body and start cooperating with it. If you've made it this far, you're not a bystander. You're one of those who wants to understand, not just listen. There are more and more of them here, and I'm recording them for you, not for views. The summary is simple. 7 elements that will change the situation without surgery, without expensive supplements, without dramatic life changes. First, check your medications. One question to the doctor can solve half the problem. Second, swap in soluble fiber for soluble fiber and remember to drink plenty of water. Third, magnesium in the right form, citrate. In the evening with a glass of warm water. Fourth, a footstool by the toilet, knees above the hips. Fifth, nourished food. Fermented foods, kefir, plain yogurt. Sixth, 5 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing in the morning before getting up. Seventh, a morning ritual, warm water, breathing, breakfast, toilet. In this order, your gut is not your enemy. It's simply waiting for the right signal. And now you know how to send it. Next, talk about what you won't hear at an appointment, even if you ask directly.